We've been fortunate enough to have access to individual funding to purchase services elsewhere. So that meant that we were able to use the individual funding that Plumtree provides to purchase mainstream services that supported our son's transition and inclusion in the local community. Because I remember that for a period of time we were doing a lot of therapy, like a lot of physio, a lot of OT, speech therapy, and everything felt really disability related, and I didn't feel like it was fair on my son Alfie or me that we were always just doing work. And so a lot of the time that I've had individual funding through Plumtree, I've used that to purchase mainstream supports. Like this year we've enrolled in a music program through the Conservatorium in the city, and that's all mainstream kids. Alfie has Williams syndrome, so he absolutely loves music. It's his perfect activity, and Plumtree have enabled us to be able to access that. And similarly, we've used individual funding to send him to mainstream childcare to form local connections and local friendships to support the transition to mainstream school, which was always our goal as a family for Alfie ever since we got the diagnosis. So initially when I started going to these activities, I felt a little bit daunted because I felt like it was obvious that Alfie wasn't keeping up with all the other children. For example, we've also used the funding to attend a gym class, like a gymnastics class for toddlers and 3 to 5 year olds. And one of Alfie's issues is his gross motor skills. So he really loved going along to the activities, but he was not, balancing on a beam like all the other kids, and he wasn't as roughhouse as some of the other kids were. And I felt personally that, well, it must be really obvious to everyone else that he's got a disability and he can't keep up with everyone. But so I used to mention it because I used to feel like, oh, people must be just wondering what's wrong with him, and has these gappy teeth, and they must think, who is this kid and what's wrong with him? And then I would mention it and everyone would say, oh, I had no idea. And eventually I just stopped feeling so self-conscious about it and enjoyed the fact that he was loving what we were doing, and stopped advertising that he had a disability, and just enjoyed being a mum and being involved in community activities like, be it swimming or gymnastics or music. Through the individualised funding that Plumtree provided, we were able to purchase some of these mainstream supports, or not supports as such, just activities that every other kid loves to do. So because there are a lot of expenses with kids who have additional needs in terms of accessing therapy, having individualised funding to subsidise the cost of these activities has really benefited our family. I mean, a lot of the therapy, you need to sit down and practice writing your name over and over and over again until you get it. But there are a lot of therapy goals that you can work on in a mainstream setting, and it can be fun and enjoyable for both you and your child. So, for example, like going to the gym class and practicing balance and building strength through just play has been really beneficial, and really that's what I have sought to do as much as possible through therapy. I did the Hannon program here at Plumtree and loved it because it was all about integrating therapy into your daily life, and not making it feel like work, but just following what your child's interested in and trying to just have fun together while trying to meet some goals. And definitely swimming is another one that he's had a lot of fun at. He enjoys, and a friend of mine even told me this when I was starting out with the swimming lessons, that her daughter is doing really, really well at swimming, and it's one thing that she's really good at. And, you know, so I wanted that for Alfie, that he could feel like, yeah, maybe I'm not maybe I'm not the fastest kid in the playground, but, you know, I can swim, or I can play this instrument, or whatever. So I wanted it to be something that he would enjoy and feel a sense of achievement from. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. Like, he loves swimming now. He loves to go along with us and just have and when we're at the pool ourselves, like, we don't make it like a structured lesson. We just have fun. You know, he jumps in and jumps off his dad's shoulders and everything like that. And so it is all fun, but it is also still beneficial for him to be doing those kind of things. It took away the guilt about spending money on just activities, like, because I did feel a certain sense of guilt from not wanting to do the therapies, but guilt from redirecting funding away from traditional therapy towards these sort of activities. I felt that having the access to the individualised funding, it made me feel, well, you know what, this is just a bonus, and I could use even more of it to purchase therapy, but what I want is for my kid to have fun, to have, and also to support those mainstream connections in the community, because I try to do as much as I can in the local area, because we plan to stay here for a while, and I want him to make local friends, with the objective in 20 years' time or whatever of having these circles of support around our family. So it's funny, but in a small way, that individualised funding will contribute to that goal, that long-term goal of ours. And having the benefit of hindsight and using this individualised funding to access activities, I do realise that it's not a trade-off, and there's not one thing that's better than the other. Therapy certainly has its benefits, but there are so many benefits that flow through accessing community supports, community services and community activities that you just can't get through specialist disability supports. And have access to individualised funding, I don't know that I would totally invest everything in therapy, because I do think I would have just burnt out by now, and really, I would have had enough by now. But certainly I can see from some families' perspective where there's really competing budget priorities, that they would totally just invest in therapy. But everything that I have learned along this journey, and I've come from a background of absolutely no knowledge about disability, is that it's what you do at home anyway that makes the most difference to your child. You can go to a therapy session for an hour a week, but if you don't take it home and work on it, be it in a formalised situation or just going to the beach and having a walk on soft sand, there's very little point in investing in therapy. We bought Alfie a drum kit, and it was expensive, and I was kind of like, oh, you know, it's expensive for a 5-year-old, but it was electric, so it could be played through headphones and the new babies wouldn't be disturbed and everything like that. And but I felt a sense of guilt because I felt like, oh, it's $700, that's a lot of money. But, you know, I thought, well, you know, we've got access to this individualised funding. We can use that money, and it really is something that he would love. He is obsessed with watching YouTube videos of drummers. So, and, you know, whenever we stopped into a drum shop, he wants to stay for about an hour and practice on drums and everything like that. So, so yeah, I did feel like, oh, if I use my individualised funding for this, then I wouldn't feel this sense of guilt because it's not really coming out of our pocket, which you know, is diminishing because we have twins on the way. So, yeah, but in the end I didn't use the individualised funding. But I had access to a number of different individualised funding options, and some of them were just straight physiotherapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. We bought an iPad because Alfie has difficulty with fine motor activities, and so that was to really target the pointing and the pinching, and purchasing apps that supported that goal. And we've used it for childcare because for me, like, even though it probably was stated on our individual plan that I wanted Alfie to go to a mainstream school, but so it was really important that he start that transition by going to a mainstream preschool. Having control of individual funding made me feel validated, actually, because like I mentioned earlier, I'd previously been told what was best for my child at that particular point in time, which didn't reflect what my aspirations were for our son. So it made me feel like actually someone cares and someone's interested in what I have to say, which just hadn't happened previously. It was pretty therapy focused, and it was obviously about using their block funding that they got as efficiently as possible, and not really taking into account what the family wanted or what the family needed. So it made me feel validated as a mother and as a contributor to the goals for my son. Be open-minded, because it really, particularly Plumtree, have taken a really broad approach to what individualised funding can cover. So it's designed to be used to support transition, inclusion and partnerships, and you'd be surprised how many things you can fit in under those categories if you really read into it. But yeah, consult with other families, come along if you can to support groups, which I found invaluable when my son was first diagnosed, and learn from other parents' experiences. Also take advice from the people involved in your child's support, like the therapists. They have great ideas, and then use all that information to come up with solutions that are going to work for your child and support their goals. If I had the opportunity to tell government how individualised funding, or what works well in individualised funding, I would say stop creating all these different programs, which they are going to be doing through consolidating with the National Disability Insurance Scheme, but try to just have one set of guidelines that people have to adhere to, and not multiple different programs with different qualifying criteria and different lengths of time in accessing the supports, different things that will be allowed or not allowed under the guidelines. because it is all just confusing, and seriously there is a lot of paperwork. So I think have a clearly defined list of what is shown to have, a benefit to children or adults with disability, and try not to make such a process out of it. Like, for example, music therapy or even just mainstream community supports. Like, there's clearly a benefit. There's a huge movement towards inclusion. So why would we deny something like karate lessons or gymnastics? It's just make it easier for people and make it consistent.
Thanks so much, Laura.